I think just fundamentally, people are just broken these days. And maybe I'm being harsh or cynical, but
Maybe just a little bit.
maybe just a little bit.
I
But
think everybody's broken fundamentally, but it's about the degree to which you're cracked so you can fill those cracks and eventually be even more solidified and strengthened and hardened than you were before, because that pressure didn't destroy you and actually crack you. It actually hardened you and calcified your savagery.
right, and more people, yeah. That's such a
But fundamentally, to
catch-22.
answer your question, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's damaged because everybody's imperfect, because everybody's full of sin, right?
Mm.
Nobody's perfect. So our imperfection rears its head through our mortality. And as a result, we have to be mindful of those imperfections when going forward, when moving forward. And I agree with you. That's really the fundamental problem. It's not self-myofascial releasing. It's not
It's what
having
you
a good
teach
posture.
here. It's literally what you teach here. Is that self-imposed willingness, that conviction, that discipline to not veer off into a different state of mind and just holding yourself accountable. You know.
And you've been in here now. You've trained with me now,
exactly,
so you know.
Yeah.
The champion mindset. And that's why people couldn't stand Michael Jordan. Because they were like, they're like, bro, we can't be you. And he's like, well, I don't care. Try your hardest to be the best you. Not only is change needed, listen, change is inevitable.
It's inevitable.
All of my fitness is founded upon human biomechanics from like you said, from an evolutionary standpoint, where we have to take into account that a lot of the pain and the discomfort and the general day-to-day physical suffering people endure is a byproduct of asymmetries in their bodies built up from doing or from not doing things their bodies were otherwise conditioned to do. So my entire fitness foundation and philosophy is surrounded by the idea of how did we evolve to move and even grow to this point physically in the first place.
I agree, and that actually brings me up to my next point. I think focus these days, because like what you're saying is for us as a race to get down to the things that matter, especially in society and building and all these things.
Racism isn't a bad thing.
We're not going to talk about that. Context matters. Internet context matters.
Anyway, sorry. As one collective sum of human beings.
Yeah, so for me, especially these days, the thing that is lacking and is continuously just dropping off the deep end is focus. Our
Attention
ability
span.
to focus and attention span. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Like, how are we going to continue to act? Are we just going to keep degrading? And then there's going to be like two paths, one path of people like you, for example, that is extremely hyper focused on being the best version of you and being a very productive member of society. But then you have this massive other side that's like just very well off the rail when it comes to just being able to focus on normal tasks
Right.
and health and all this stuff.
Something as general as their day-to-day eating even, right?
Yeah.
Being able to focus on that.
Is this just a self-fulfilling prophecy at this
Right.
point, or what are we doing here? Like, where are we going?
So, first of all, Voltaire says judge a man based off his questions and not his answers. That's a genius question. So, mad respect to you. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I think
I appreciate that.
I mean, anybody can answer a question. Anybody can accumulate data and statistics and facts and be able to legit surmise some answer to any formulated question. But being able to inquisitively and curiously curate a question fundamentally.
It's like,
Did
do you not see what's happening? Like, that's how I feel. Honestly,
did you not like those alliterations? That's all I'm saying.
I love.
Okay.
That's why I like talking to you, because like there's an urgency, right? Like, what the hell is happening? Like,
Right.
there's a constantly living thing that's continuously evolving, and I'm just wondering, I'm kind of worried about
the newer generation, the next generation, the future generations.
Yeah, and also the innate human curiosity that kind of forces us into weird situations where we get into just like different wars for different
Right.
reasons, and
So,
whatever.
to go back and answer the question about attention span and
Mhm.
kind of where we're headed with that.
Mhm.
I think with anything, it doesn't matter really how far gone you are, almost like the developed asymmetries of your body through biomechanic mishaps, like sitting all day and then, to break it down for the audience, by sitting all day, what you're doing is you are causing a tension in your on the anterior side of your body, which is the front side of your body,
Mhm.
because sitting is like a half squat and it's causing the top of your thighs to be constantly elongated in a near half squat position all day. So whenever you stand up, your body is used to now the top of your thigh, which is your rectus femoris, being extra stretched to where when you stand up, it's causing a pull on the top
Mm.
of your hips, which causes an anterior pelvic tilt.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't matter really how far gone you are. I have seen people with severe scoliosis, people with severe degenerative diseases be able to correct to the best of their body's capabilities those fundamental asymmetries in their body. Now, the principle of fixing the asymmetries is really the principle of maintaining the body's natural mechanics fundamentally, which is having proper posture, making sure you're working out the right way, all of those basic things, making sure your post workout recovery is good, making sure your diet fundamentally is good,
Right.
all of these things, right? So, the same thing with attention span. I don't think you're ever too far gone, just like in the asymmetries of your body, being able to symmetrically.
It's like relearn it.
Yeah, but I wanted to say the word symmetricize or something.
It works.
But to re-symmetricize, but to make your asymmetries then symmetrical again, to
Right.
be able to bounce back from the wayward ways of the social implications of sitting and not moving enough the way that we otherwise used to have to. So with attention span, it's the same thing. Even if you're a dopamine addict and you're on TikTok all day and you can't stand watching a video that's longer than 1 minute because you're used to 6-second scrolls,
Mhm.
I think it's being able to take the same principles of what you have to endure when correcting those asymmetries in your body, which is enduring the pain of something like self-myofascial releasing. Some people will argue the implications of myofascial releasing. I'm not even going to get there. What that is like foam rolling, right?
Oh, right,
Yeah,
right.
but
Okay.
foam rolling fundamentally, I don't even really agree with foam rolling. I agree with something a
Oh.
little more ardent than foam rolling, which is like using a medicine ball. But without going down that road, the asymmetries in your body, getting rid of those and getting resymmetric and realigning all of those fundamental biomechanics back to a proper biomechanic takes takes uncomfortable pain and
Mhm.
suffering when releasing those asymmetries, even by holding your posture the right way. Like that's why sitting all day, like I edit
Right.
video, dude, I edit videos. So my shoulders roll all day when I'm
Yeah,
editing
it's
videos.
bad, yeah.
So I'm considerate of being more shoulder blades back every like 10, 15 minutes when I catch myself rolling my shoulders.
Sure.
And guess what? That's uncomfortable every 15 minutes having to remind myself, having to endure that uncomfort. But the more I do that, the less I'm staying in that asymmetrical stage to cause my body to develop those asymmetrical tendencies.
So how do you get people to
So how do you get them
it's like
to get the asymmetries of their attention span back on track?
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm trying to think,
Well, to finish that point,
Yeah, go
how
ahead.
you get them to get their asymmetries, the asymmetries of their attention span back on track is you instill the same level of suffering and uncomfort, which is the disassociation from the original comfort in and of itself.
You kinda have to force it in there, like, that pain and that uncomfort, and that's why having a trainer or somebody like a mentor
Right.
is important.
To enforce it no matter how you feel.
Yeah.
Because when I'm helping my clients foam roll, self myofascial release, but with a medicine ball, or if you do the same thing with your feet to maintain your feet health, rolling out the bottom of your plantar fascia to release all of the adhesions in your feet. Because again, we don't walk as much, so we're not utilizing the feet muscles as much. And because of shoes, and without going down that route, also because of the way shoes have been developed, our feet are super like pigeon toed. Whole nother
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah.
But when I'm having my clients endure either the foot rolling or the foam rolling through the myofascial releasing, but using a medicine ball, it is super uncomfortable and it is
Mhm.
low key painful. So it's about gauging that pain tolerance and enduring just enough suffering to be able to still get that self myofascial release to get rid of those adhesions.
Hmm.
So you do the same thing with respect to your dopamine addiction. You endure the uncomfort of releasing that adhesion, which is disassociating from the source, whether that's completely deleting your account on social media, whether it's what is it? I don't know if you sleep your accounts, however that stuff works,
Yeah.
whether it's just turning your phone on airplane mode all day, or however it is for you, it's finding a way to disassociate from the severity of that asymmetry fundamentally.
Yeah.
And you can develop that tolerance back over time and get symmetrical again. It just takes a little uncomfort and a little endurance through that uncomfort.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I
Does that
think
kind of answer your question?
you have the practical application, I think, that a very so that, like, you would be it would be valuable for this information to be, like, extrapolated and actually applied but then like it's like the before part is still missing for me because you still need I think just fundamentally people are just broken these days. And maybe I'm being harsh or cynical, but
Maybe just a little bit.
maybe just a little bit,
I
but
think everybody's broken fundamentally, but it's about the degree to which you're cracked so you can fill those cracks and eventually be even more solidified and strengthened and hardened than you were before, because that pressure didn't destroy you and actually crack you. It actually hardened you and calcified your savagery.
right. Yeah, and more people yeah, that's such a
But fundamentally, to
catch-22.
answer your question, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's damaged because everybody's imperfect, because everybody's full of sin, right?
Mm.
Nobody's perfect. So our imperfection rears its head through our mortality. And as a result, we have to be mindful of those imperfections when going forward, when moving forward. And I agree with you. That's really the fundamental problem. It's not self-myofascial releasing. It's not
It's what
having
you
a good
teach here.
posture.
It's literally what you teach here is that self-imposed willingness, that conviction, that discipline to not veer off into a different state of mind and just holding yourself accountable, you know?
And you've been in here now. You've
Yeah,
trained
I
with me now, so you
exactly,
know.
yeah. And that's a great way to approach life because it's like, you know, the people that come in here, you help us focus more on just our physique and like the actual workouts. You help people understand why this matters and why it's going to apply to the rest of your life and why it only matters if it applies to the rest of your life.
Man.
There's no other point if you're just going to come in here and put a face on and be dedicated and all this stuff, but then you leave and you're a different person.
Right.
So you really were trying to instill that in my head. And I appreciated that because not many people will do that. They'll just get them, you know, they'll get paid, send you on your way. All right, Karen, go back to your neighborhood and you know your
Man,
normal life and job, and that's it.
but that's the thing. That's why it's even self-sustained training, bro, is because just so you know, most personal trainers are incentivized to not teach you certain things. So you have to go back to them recurringly and depend on them to where they constantly have somebody on retainer, to where they constantly have a deposit in their bank account, to where they constantly have a billing receipt that they have to send out. Like that's really what it's about for them.
Right.
Because I edit videos for a living, and that's low key the primary source of my income, I'm able to embark on something like personal training with a little more intention without the dependency on those superficial instant gratification ideals, like just getting them as a paycheck.
Yeah.
Which is why I think you can even differentiate the sustenance and what you sustain when leaving here versus leaving other, like that dude I'm not even saying that dude was a bad trainer. I'm not even saying most people are bad trainers. I'm just saying for it to be able to sustain with you is the most important tool, is the most important skill to develop within any sort of coaching client relationship, is making sure that they represent the integrity of the ideal that you were trying to instill and teach them in the first place. And if they aren't accurately representing that, maybe that's indicative of your ideal and the way you teach things.
You know what that reminds me of is like you have that master, like you're the master, right? And then there's a frustrating like you know part of you or that's being frustrated because you're like I already know what you're going through. I already know where you're at mentally. It's like I feel like is that fair to say about you? Like you have that like I get it type of like feeling that you're just trying to get people to because you've come so long, right, or so far, and that you want people to understand that process.
I want most of all, I want people to understand that because of how far gone I was, I know for a fact how far they can go and how far they can eventually become, or how far they can eventually come to become the best version of themselves, because I had to do that very thing. Coming from having superficial accolades by being like varsity this and that as an underclassman, as a freshman and all this stuff, and then having my friends watch me get jumped, and then feeling isolated from the world and first feeling like the world was underneath me and then having it completely ripped from me, to then being homeless, to then finally understanding my worth by finding a home, not in anything external, but a home within myself. Knowing that deep down, it doesn't matter how far down and out you are, like we talked about the asymmetries in your body, it's knowing how you can always bounce back and recover and become symmetrical again.
I feel that. Yeah.
Dude, you're, again, Voltaire says judgment based off his questions, not his answers. And that anecdote is indicative of your genius, because you understand that, especially now training with me, that if there wasn't weight behind the words, it would have already revealed itself and the kingdom would have already crumbled.
Right.
But the integrity of people's actions will eventually give rise to greater thoughts, which will give rise to those greater words, which will allow them to continually grow in themselves to become that best version of themselves continually.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, I really try to empathize with every individual, though everybody's story is different. I try to empathize with every individual, and knowing that because of how down and out I was, I know for a fact that the bounce back for you is discoverable, but we have to make the effort to make that discovery.
Yeah.